You are standing in the city right now. Maybe it's morning, maybe the sun is up, and you think the air looks clean. But here is what you can't see. Ultra-fine particles, smaller than 1,000th the width of a human hair, are streaming into your lungs with every single breath you take. Now imagine you are pregnant, or imagine someone you love is, because what we know now, what the science is telling us, is that those invisible particles don't stop at the mother. They cross the placenta, they enter the fetal bloodstream. They are shaping a child who hasn't even taken their first breath yet. This is the story of air pollution during pregnancy, and what we discover is going to fundamentally change how you think about the air around you. The air in most of the world's major cities contains a cocktail of pollutants. We're talking nitrogen dioxide from vehicle exhaust, carbon monoxide from combustion, ground-level ozone, and most critically, particulate matter. Scientists classify these particles by size: PM10, PM2.5, and ultrafine PM0.1. PM2.5, particles just 2.5 microns across, are the ones that terrify researchers most. They are small enough to bypass the nose, bypass the throat, and lodge deep in the alveoli of the lungs. From there, they enter the bloodstream directly. No filter, no warning. A pregnant woman walks through a city intersection and inhales approximately 15,000 liters of air per day, roughly 20% more than a non-pregnant adult, because her oxygen demand has surged to support 2 lives. More air means more exposure. More exposure means more risk. The math is brutal. For generations, the placenta was considered a fortress, a biological wall between the mother and the developing child, filtering out toxins before they could cause harm. We now know that belief was catastrophically wrong. In 2020, researchers at the University of Aberdeen published landmark findings. They detected black carbon particles, the signature fingerprint of combustion pollution, in the placental tissue of every single sample they examined. Every one. These particles had crossed the placenta and reached the fetal side. And it doesn't stop at the placenta. Ultrafine particles have now been detected in fetal liver tissue, in fetal lung tissue, and, most alarmingly, in fetal brain tissue. The particles travel through the umbilical blood supply and distribute systemically throughout the developing organism. The unborn child has no immune system equipped to respond. It has no defense mechanism. It is, in the most literal sense, defenseless. The particles don't just travel, they trigger inflammation, oxidative stress, immune dysregulation. These cascading biological responses in the mother's body translate directly into altered development signals for the fetus. The child's organs, nervous system, and immune programming are being shaped in real time by the air outside the window. Let's talk about what this actually means for the child. Because the data here is not abstract, it is not theoretical. It is documented in outcomes that are measurable, heartbreaking, and increasingly common. Preterm birth. Studies published in Environmental Health Perspectives show that a 10 micrograms per cubic meter increase in PM2.5 exposure raises the risk of preterm birth by up to 18%. Low birth weight, another documented consequence, is itself a predictor of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and cognitive impairment in adulthood. Then there is the developing brain. The fetal nervous system is exquisitely sensitive during the first and second trimesters. Neurons are migrating, synaptic connections are forming. Exposure to NO2 and fine particulate matter during this window has been linked to measurable reductions in cortical thickness, the outer layer of the brain responsible for language, memory, and executive function. A 2021 study tracking over 10,000 children found that those born to mothers in the highest pollution quartile scored measurably lower on cognitive assessments at age 5 compared to children from lower exposure pregnancies, even after controlling for socioeconomic factors. The pollution was the differentiating variable. The air they couldn't see was already shaping the intelligence they would one day rely on. The lungs, the immune system, the epigenome, the chemical switches that control which genes are expressed and when. Air pollution during pregnancy has been shown to leave what scientists call an epigenetic fingerprint, altered methylation patterns on key immune genes that can persist into childhood, adolescence, and potentially across generations. You are not just affecting one life, you may be altering a biological inheritance. Here is where the story turns investigative, because this data is not new. The link between air pollution and adverse birth outcomes has been documented in peer-reviewed literature since the early 2000s. The EPA has known, city governments have known, and yet the average urban air quality in the developing world, where 91% of the global population lives, still exceeds WHO safe limits by a factor of 6. And the burden is not distributed equally. The communities nearest to highways, industrial zones, and power plants are disproportionately low income and communities of color. A pregnant woman in a wealthy zip code with green space, filtered air, and a car that stays out of traffic lives inside a fundamentally different biological reality than a pregnant woman 2 miles away on a bus route adjacent to a freeway. This is environmental injustice, and the science has given it a body count. So, what do you do with this information? Because knowing the danger without knowing the response is just anxiety, and anxiety is not the goal. Action is. First, know your air. Real-time AQI, Air Quality Index data, is now available on free apps in most countries. When the AQI climbs above 100, outdoor exposure should be minimized for pregnant individuals. Above 150, stay indoors. This is not precaution, this is evidence-based exposure management. Second, indoor filtration. HEPA air purifiers, particularly in the bedroom where you spend 7 to 9 hours every night, have been shown in randomized controlled trials to reduce indoor PM 2.5 by up to 80%. In one trial, pregnant women in the filtration group gave birth to babies with significantly higher birth weights. A machine, a filter, a measurable change in a child's first moments of life. But individual action only goes so far, because the air you breathe is a policy decision. Vehicle emission standards, industrial regulation, urban tree canopy investment, these are the levers that move population-level exposure. The science is shouting. The question is whether the political will can hear it. We started with you, standing in the city. We started with the air you can't see and the danger you weren't told about. And now you know. The particles are real. The science is real. The fetal exposure is real. And the window in which it matters most, the 40 weeks of pregnancy, is one of the most consequential exposure periods in a human life. The child being formed right now in cities around the world is not being formed in a vacuum. It is being formed inside a chemical environment we created. And the most extraordinary thing about that fact is this: we know how to change it. We have the filtration, we have the policy levers, we have the science. What we need is the urgency to match the stakes. Share this video with someone who is pregnant or planning to be, because the first breath of protection starts before the first breath of life.